Hey, I'm Isabela, and after over 500 hours of Animal Crossing gameplay, I decided to flatten out my island and start from scratch. It wasn't long until I started feeling kind of overwhelmed, and so I just wanted to share some things that I tried to keep in mind when trying to rebuild my island. And I think these tips are mainly for beginners, but even if you're a seasoned player, you might still find this helpful. And if you do, please like this video and leave some other helpful tips in the comments. And just as a side note, my entire island is currently still under construction and I don't have a single area that is completely built out. So let's start strong here with a pretty controversial opinion, which is you don't have to stick to a single theme on your island. And hear me out. I think sticking to a single theme can really help if you are just starting out and you're not really sure about what you want your island to look like just yet. But if you find that you're kind of stuck, or you feel like you're kind of putting a lot of unnecessary pressure on yourself to conform to the single theme, this might actually be a good thing to keep in mind. Or even just finding a way to combine, two themes that you like together on the same island. It can be really interesting and also a more stimulating challenge than just feeling pressure to, stick to one theme. Now you might be saying, how are these things going to connect? How is it going to be cohesive? To which I say, think about transitional spaces. The flow from going to one area of your island to another, or, trying to connect two pieces that you built out separately. So here's an area of my island where I have to make a pretty abrupt transition from a soon-to-be kind of foresty / farming area into a more urban street. The first step is just finding a path. This is super obvious. Even honestly, the in-game paths can be really nice if you just want to put something down to kind of help you plan further. But specifically talking about transitional spaces, the reason why I like to put down a path first is because it kind of helps me visualize where I want either the next build to be, or kind of visualize the path that I would want someone to take going from one section of the island to another. Especially if you're kind of working with a more suburban or countryside, it might be nice to look at paths that kind of twist around, kind of like the path or something similar to that shape, so that you can have a lot of freedom with customizing where the curves go and everything like that. So once you have your path down and the general flow of how you want to connect two spaces, the next thing you're going to want to do is terraform. And I know a lot of people get very overwhelmed with terraforming. I am one of them. This is kind of just to add to what you already have. So what you're going to want to do is now terraform based on the path that you created. This will kind of help your transitional area not look too open. If it's open, it's kind of easier to see how different those two areas of your island can be. So terraforming can conceal that difference. The next and final step to this transitional space equation is mixing furnitures. So to go back to having more than one theme on your island, something you can do is kind of add both urban and rural kind of furniture together, or something like that, so that it doesn't feel super abrupt and instead you're kind of gradually transitioning into your next theme. And honestly, this works if you only have one theme on your island as well. Mixing furniture also helps to kind of add a little bit more of an eclectic feeling. It just helps to kind of tie everything together. The next tip that I have would be to kind of really get a grasp on whether you want a space to be open or cluttered. And there are benefits to both of these. There are going to be areas where you want to do like farming or the more practical actions in the game. So this is my shopping center and it is still under construction, but I generally like to have this very open because this is where I have Nook's Cranny and Able Sisters, and I kind of want to be able to run to be able to sell things very quickly. So I prefer not really having too much friction in order to do those things. So since I've discussed open spaces, the next topic would be cluttered spaces. And so cluttered spaces are, the more decorative aesthetic areas, and this is kind of a good way of making small areas look a lot fuller. The cluttered spaces can really help to make an area feel a lot more immersive. And you can really see this in island tours where, they have like extremely cluttered and very dense areas. And then when you transition into another area, it feels like their island is just so big, and having that density can really help you get the same effect on your island. My last tip is a little obvious, but when in doubt, design a place you're already familiar with. This is my unfinished outdoor library that leads into a speakeasy, and this is actually inspired by a speakeasy-style bar from my old college town. Whether it's a real or fictional place, it's a pretty fun challenge to try to recreate it using the in-game furniture. And lastly, since it already exists, you don't have to think as hard in terms of layout. It might be a good idea to work on those areas when, you're feeling a little uninspired. Working on those sections can keep your progress going and won't be super draining. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you thought these tips were helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.